So without further introduction, let me introduce you to the panel. Up first, we have moderator Tori Reed, also known as Black Romance Connoisseur on Instagram and TikTok. Now our panel. Author of over 140 books and novellas and 15 million books in print, New York Times and USA Today best-selling author, writer career began nearly 30 years ago. Everyone give it up for Brenda Jackson. Up next, we have USA Today American author of historical and contemporary romance novels with a particular focus on 19th century African American life. Everybody give it up for Beverly Jenkins. And last but not least, author of romance, mystery, and women's fiction, written over several years. Everyone give it up for Donna Hill.
Thank you so much, Sierra. If I could just have another round of applause for these iconic literary legends. All right, I'm gonna kick this off by asking, each of your careers span over decades, and you've all had your own unique journeys. What inspired you to begin writing? And we can go from...
My journey began with my aunt, who was a teacher. And when I was small, all she wanted to do was make sure I had books in the house. I started reading before I started going to school. And back in the day, kids could go to the library without parents. And that's where I spent my Saturday afternoons, reading and reading and reading. But I grew up during a time when people like me, I didn't see them on the covers, so I never believed that I could be a writer. And it wasn't until 1987 when an editor first published one of my short stories, and then I believed that I could write, and I've been writing ever since.
I didn't want to be a writer. All I ever wanted to do was work in a library. I think those of us who write have a thing for libraries. I just sort of stumbled into this, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I get to highlight the 19th century African American women and the men who love them madly, and we learn a lot, not just about lovemaking. So yeah, I'm here and I thank you.
My journey began when I was in the 8th grade and I wrote short, sweet love stories to entertain my classmates. My desire was to go into corporate America. It's only when I would go to my class reunions and those same classmates who read my stories in the 8th grade encouraged me to write bigger, more modern, more sexier books than what I did in the 8th grade. So I got tired of them asking me, have you written a book yet? And I would say, no, I'm in corporate America. No excuse, write that book. So I did it as a dare. They dared me to write it. I took them up on it. And 150th book later, I am still here writing.
I know, I speak for myself and probably everyone here, we are so grateful that you were inspired to write and share your stories. If you could, if there was a pivotal moment that shaped your writing career, what was it? Or the direction of your writing? Is there a pivotal moment that shaped the direction of your writing?
I would say when I went to my very first writers conference, and I met with an editor at one of the biggest romance publishing houses in the world. And she told me, this is a good story, but do your characters have to be Black? That was the pivotal moment for me, because I knew that I wanted to write the stories about people that look like me, men that love like the kind of men I like to love. And I wanted to see those stories. And so that kept me pushing forward until I found a publisher that was willing to publish me. And my first novel came out in 1990, and I've been writing ever since.
I don't know, y'all. I think my pivotal moment came when they kept sending me contracts. I mean, they sent me the first one right, I finished it. They sent me the second one. They kept sending me contracts, I kept writing books. So that's my pivotal moment, and I'm sticking to it.
My pivotal moment came when I was attending different writers' conferences, Romance Writers of America, and I sat in on a workshop with an editor, and Donna, I believe you were there that day, who looked us in our face. It was like maybe 6 black women in a room full of Caucasian women. And someone asked, why did they not buy black books or books from black women? And even though we were sitting in the room, she said, because black women can't write books. So we decided that day to prove her wrong.
And you've been proving her wrong every day since. I love that so much. So several of your works have been adapted or are in the process of being adapted into film. Can you share about those projects?
The BET did 3 of my novels for television. That was an experience, and I'll kind of leave it at that. My more recent book, Confessions in B Flat, has been optioned by Amblin Entertainment. So I'm looking forward to that coming to the screen. And an earlier novel, Getting Hers, has been optioned as well. So those are the 2 that are in the works right now, and 3 that have already hit the screen.
You know, being optioned and being made are 2 different things. You know, so right now, my Blessing series, 12 books in, has been optioned by NBC Universal Studios, production by John Legend's Get Lifted Film Group. So, you know, yay, I'm happy and excited and all that, but, you know, and they're very excited too, so I have to say that. So we'll just wait and see what it turns out, okay?
I've been blessed in that over 30 of my books have been optioned for movies by various networks. I just finished filming 2 this year in April and May. Passion Flick offered me a 3-book contract based on my Granger series. One came out in 2019, then the pandemic happened, and then the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So we finally were able to film the last 2 books in that series in April and May of this year in Miami. Now I have go on to the next option, which is an 8-book option deal with Hallmark for Catalina Cole series. And so I have them agreeing not to overlap, so I could be more than one place at one time. So I'm hoping that once they make an option, that's not a guarantee that the movie will be made. But I was lucky enough to get stations and network who so far they optioned and they are doing what they said they would do.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. I know our fingers are crossed that all of those that have been optioned will come to film, and they will stick as close to your story that you penned. That's what we want. Looking back over your careers, what would you say is your greatest achievement?
Still being here after 30-something years. That has to be, you know, that all of us have been around for a long time. And we have seen writers come and go. There's been 1 and 2 book wonders, writers that have just sort of given up because the industry is so difficult. So to be able to sustain a career for 30 odd years, I think is a major achievement.
Ditto what Donna said, because we know how difficult it is. But I think for me, and probably for all of us, is our connection to you. We wouldn't be here without you. You paid our mortgage. You bought my car last year. You bought my cigarettes. And we are so very, very grateful to have that support, because books are expensive now. And for you to choose that, to take that hard-earned cash and buy books with it means a lot. So thank you for being a blessing in my life. I appreciate it.
I ditto what Beverly said. From the very first book, I always said that my readers were important to me. But I think because of you, my greatest achievement during my career as an author is first being the first Black woman in the romance genre to make the USA bestsellers list, and also being the first Black woman in the romance genre to make the New York Times bestseller list. Not once or twice, but currently 15 times. And that's an accomplishment.
My goodness, quite an accomplishment, and I appreciate y'all for sharing those. So let's talk about the books now, okay? Now, if you could pick, and I hate to have to make y'all pick between y'all babies, but if you could pick a favorite book of yours or a favorite character of yours, who would it be and why? Why are they special to you?
I'm going last this.
I'll go first then. My favorite book would probably be something like Love. I know a lot of y'all would choose Indigo. But I choose it because I think it's the best written book in terms of balance and detail and, you know, humor and, oh my God, I'm crying kind of stuff. So that would be my choice, something like Love.
Wow. Okay, remember I got 150 books. So I will always say my favorite book is my first book, Tonight and Forever, where I introduced the Medeiros family. My book that I think is a book that took a lot out of me to write, and I think is my best book that I've ever written, and I don't think I could ever write another one like it, is Ties That Bind. And my favorite character, you know, I got the Westmorelands, the Steeles, the Bennett. I'm gonna say my favorite character is Brisbane Bain Westmoreland.
Wow, okay. I think that my favorite book is Rhythms. And I say Rhythms because it was my first opportunity to expand beyond just romance. It led me to write an intergenerational story. It let me talk about love relationships through these generations. And it also let me talk about passing and what that was like for so many of us and why we chose to do that. It took a lot of work. There was a lot of research. I had like tons of research because the book began in 1929, and clearly I was not born then. So it was my first step into writing historical type work. My favorite character, though, is Quentin Parker from A Private Affair. I love him. He is a sort of a melding of several beautiful black men that I know, and I love him. I always loved him. So him and Rafe Lawson, those are my two favorite heroes. Yeah, from the Lawsons of Louisiana.
Thank you so much. And as we talk about the things that writing those books, where those places that they took you, if we could, how do you think, like, how has the black romance genre evolved since you've been writing?
Well, when I started, my first novel came out in 1990, and my book, there was 10,000 copies of the book published. It was in a distributor. The publisher had nowhere to put it because bookstores were not looking for our books. They were not shelving our books and didn't believe that we were going to buy those books. So I literally went from different black bookstores in Brooklyn, where I live, Brooklyn, New York, and asked them if they could put the book on their shelves. And their response was, but what is this? They didn't know what black romance was in 1990. There was no shelves for our books in 1990. And so to see today that you can go into a bookstore and find everything imaginable by black authors is major. And this is new. You know, you go into the store now and you think it's always been this way, and it has not. We fought to be on the shelves. We fought to be face out. We fought not to have to be segregated into a particular part of the bookstore. So we've come a long way. We still have a ways to go, but it's nothing like what it was when I was coming up.
I think for me, you know, what Donna said, but also who was in romance. Right. You know, back then you had to be white, you had to be thin, you had to have blonde hair, blue eyes, you were size 3. Over the years, look, our romance books reflect everybody in this room. You know, you can be all identities. So, but what really, for me, is the tribute to black men that I write. You know, back then, any black guy that was in a book was a drug dealer or, you know, or dysfunctional or abusive. And I chose to do Buffalo Soldiers. I chose to do black outlaws and lawmen. I chose to show black men in a way and give them flowers in a way that outside of black romance you very rarely see. Exactly. You know, so, you know, you're gonna find positive images of black men in black romance no matter what. So, for me, that's the biggest change.
For me, when I began writing, I was a black woman, so I wrote for other black women because I understood what romance was about. But then my husband wasn't reading my books. And I'm like, why? He said, well, you don't have no action in it. He said, you put some blood, guts, a good fight scene, then I'll read it. So then I knew, oh no, you can't just write them for the women, because then you're isolating their husbands. So then I started writing action romance. Some of my books became action romance, Fire and Desire, Surrender. And then I had more men writing me saying, boy, I love your action in your book. So then when I came up with a series called The Men of Action, I still had romance in there, but I put men in act. It was more about the men in the leading role, the women they loved and protected. And then I wrote the Playboy Handbook that was for me, the player's handbook. And so now when I go to a book signing, depending on what book I'm signing, I have just as many men showing up to get their Brenda Jackson book autograph as women. So men, if you haven't seen or read my Men of Action, read it. It's a lot on it. In my first book, there's a gun on the cover. So it's not, so it's romance in there, but it's the kind you would like.
I think just some of what you touched on, especially you, Donna, about how difficult it is for Black authors compared to their counterparts, right? So success for Black authors can look different. And I think about all of the earlier career authors coming up and how much they kind of probably need to hear what success, how you define success. What is success for you as a Black author?
For me, success is the people who continue to keep reading my work. It's a lot of times, people think that you have to have a lot of, accolades behind whatever it is that you do. But success is different for different people. Success for some writer may be to self-publish their own book, and that's successful for them. So for me, it's being able to do what I love doing, and I do it when I feel like it. I do it as often as I want, and that for me is success, and still being able to do it after all of this time.
Yeah, it's, you can define success in many different ways. I'm successful when I have a reader who said, well, I read your books to my mom in hospice. Or we read your books when we were doing dialysis. Or I'm at a signing and y'all come up to me and say, can you talk to my mom on the phone? And I, of course, say yes. So, yeah, you can measure success by, how many Cadillacs you got, which I don't have, any. But to get that feedback and to feel yourself touched by readers and what their books mean in their lives, that's a different kind of success, and I'll take that anytime.
Success for me is my readers, that they keep coming back after next year, be 30 years as an author, that even with 10 series of books, and one series, the Westmoreland, I'm up to 40-something book in the series, and readers still want to know about the family. I'm like, really? And then you got the Madeiras, that they mean just as much to my readers as they mean to me. They're family, because you recognize some of the same people that I write about in your families. So it's always connecting with my readers, being true to who I am, to giving back, to recognize that I'm a product of a community and I have to give back. That's why I established scholarships to help send kids to college, because their parents helped put me where I am today. My book would just be a book on the shelf if you didn't buy it. So I feel like I need to give back to my community.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And you know what? I love that you talked about Tonight and Forever getting ready to celebrate 30 years next year. Before I ask y'all what's next, I do want to acknowledge that with Tonight and Forever celebrating 30 next year, Night Song, your first novel, celebrating 30 years this month, and Donna, your book, Room in the Heart, is celebrating 35 years next year. That is amazing to see Black love stories being told, and now they can be told cross generations, right? You have multiple generations of readers, and that's a beautiful thing. Can you tell us what do you have coming next? What projects do you have coming for us?
So over the past 4 years or so, I've been sort of combining historical events with my romances. So the last two novels, Confessions in B Flat, the one that was optioned, was all about the civil rights movement in the 60s. The next one was I Am Aya, which is historical in that it takes us all the way back to 1839 and the life of this girl and her family. So I got interested in the rise of the black middle class and how that was important. And one of the pillars of that were the Pullman Porters and what they contributed to society. So that's the book that I'm working on now. It's called Nola and Baldwin, and it's about the Pullman Porter and the woman who helps to change his life and the struggles that they go through in a racial time period in Mississippi. So that's what I'm working on now.
I'm trying to finish book 12, the last book in the Blessing series, so that you guys will get it next summer. After that, probably a self-published book that I've been promising and lying to my readers for the last 15 years. Sweetness from Edge of Deadly Sexy. Or is it Sexy Dangerous? Sexy Dangerous. And then I want to do dragons, because I'm a big fantasy reader. So I want to see black women riding a dragon. So I'll keep y'all posted on that, okay?
Oh, wow. With the release of my 150th book, what I'm going to do is introduce my first young adult book next summer. And it's a special book in that for the first time ever, I'm using a pen name because as young kids, I don't want them to go to a store and say, I want to read that Brenda Jackson book. So what I'm doing, I'm coming out as Lauren Medeiros, the heroine of my very first book, who wrote children books. And the hero and heroine is a couple or a young adult that all of my readers have come to know because you know their parents. Christy and Alex Maxwell, their daughter is a chip off the old block. She's like a young Nancy Drew. And so her protector, the guy that's gonna protect her when she go on all these crazy escapades, y'all know his daddy, Ashton Sinclair. He is Wolf Sinclair, the one that inherits his daddy telepathical powers. They protect A.C. Maxwell, Alexandra Christine Maxwell. So I am bringing that out. And I'm like Donna, I'm also working on a book that takes place in the 1920s, part romance, but it's about Bessie Coleman, one of the first women who flew the plane, because she died in my hometown. She was killed in Jacksonville, Florida. So I always wanted to tell her story, put a little romance in it, but it will be a non-fiction story.
Thank you so, so much. Oh, man. If y'all could just give these three legends the biggest applause. And be sure to buy their books.